What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Daniel Starkand, here to celebrate the Ohtani 51-51 hangover. Daniel, you've got the hat on. I've got the shirt on. Gavin Lux says that has to be the greatest baseball game of all time. It has to be. Daniel, you and I have not talked yet. We did multiple live shows last night covering this game, all sorts of stuff. But give me where you are at the morning after what Ohtani did yesterday.
Yeah, well, first of all, we're about to show a bunch of stats that, support Gavin Lux's claim. So it's not super far-fetched, but honestly, just still in awe, absolutely incredible what he did. Like it's going to be one of those like where were you type moments. Like this is something that will be remembered forever, like one of the most historic things we've ever seen. Like not only did he become the first to reach the 50-50 club, but the individual game he had to do it was, one of the best games of all time. I would say I'm surprised, but with Shohei, like there's nothing that's, that surprising anymore just because, he could do literally anything, I'm convinced at this point. But that was incredible. And I woke up today and obviously the first thought was like, was that a dream or like, did it actually happen? And then you get on Twitter, you're seeing all that, the highlights and such. And let me just say, Joe Davis, some phenomenal calls. We're blessed with him. And it was great that he was on the call for that. I know a lot of people would have preferred, if he did it back in LA and there was probably maybe only like 5,000 people there in Miami to see, this historic feat, but nonetheless, it was incredible and something I'll definitely never forget.
Yeah, I'm with you. I missed the beginning of the game, but as soon as he hit the first home run, I start seeing things via text message, via social media, and I'm like, all right, well, I know it's a day game in Miami, but figure out a way to make sure you're there when he's got his next at bat. Watch through the end of the game. Of course, Anthony and I went live if you want to see that. We reacted kind of in real time right as the game was ending, and then Blake and Scott hopped on later in the night as well. But I think the question, Daniel, that everybody's asking today is, did Shohei Ohtani have the greatest offensive game ever in Major League history? There's no real way to compare this to like a perfect game pitching wise or 20 strikeouts or any of that. So we'll just stay in the lane of offensive games. And I have a ton of stats. But before I share any of these stats, I think it's important to remember the context, because if Ohtani had done all of this in a random June game that was meaningless to accomplish nothing, it would have been insanely impressive. And we would have been having, I think, the same conversation. Was that the greatest offensive performance we've ever seen? However, what makes this even more interesting, more compelling, and maybe why Gavin Lux is right, the answer to this question is yes, is because I'm going to give you a bunch of stats about what he did last night that do not even include the fact that he did it to reach 49-49, 50-50, and then 51-51. Do not include the fact that he did it in a game in which his team clinched the postseason, and it will be his first postseason appearance in history in his career. And so those things, like these things happening in a vacuum, unbelievably impressive, maybe the greatest moment ever. These things happening in the moment they did to accomplish what they did, I think only adds to kind of the allure and the mystery of this. So I'll throw some stats, some tweets up here. These were a few of my favorite ones from a handful of different people. You can read those. Adam Dworosky mentioning like how many guys have had 6 hits, 3 homers, 2 steals. How many have done those things at any point in their career? Opta stats, since RBI became official, only one Major League Baseball player has had over the course of their entire career a game with 10 RBIs, a game with 6 hits, a game with 5 extra base hits, a game with 3 home runs, a game with 2 steals. Ohtani did all of those things in one. No player has ever in the course of their entire career accomplished all of those things, even in separate games. Ohtani did it once. Sarah Lang's Ohtani's 51 steals are obviously the most steals in a 50 home run season ever. More than double the highest mark that was Alex Rodriguez back with 24 in 2007. Here are some other numbers related to the Adam Dworosky tweet that you see there. There are 21,646 players who have had 2 steals in a game. There are 668 players who have had 3 home runs in a game. There are just 75 players who have had 6 hits in a game. There are 16 players who have had 10 RBIs in a game. There are 7 players who have had 17 total bases in a game. Again, that's like one individual game in which you had one of those things. Ohtani did all of those things in one game at the same time. Only 12 players have ever reached the stolen base home run hits mark at any point. So like 6 hits, 3 home runs, and 2 steals at any point in your career. Ohtani did it in one game. Only 4 players have ever had a 10 RBI game in their career and a 6-hit game in their career. Ohtani again did it in once. He did all these things in one game. No player has ever had 10 RBIs and a single stolen base in a game in Major League history. Ohtani had 2 steals. No player has ever had 3 home runs and multiple stolen bases in one game in Major League history. Ohtani did it in one game. So that's an overwhelming amount of statistics, Daniel. So I apologize to people about that. But I listened to all of that. I think it's the greatest offensive game in Major League history. And I think you might have been able to say that even if it didn't come on the night and in the context that it did.
Yeah, and I think the craziest part is that it could have been even better, like, honestly, because he leads off the game with an absolute scorcher of a double that was 6 inches away from being what would have been his 4th home run. And then later in the game, he hit another double that he got thrown out trying to go to third. Like, if he would have been safe there, he would have hit for the cycle as well. Like, so just an absolutely incredible game. And to me, like, the most impressive part is that, kind of like you were saying before, he did it like with the pressure on here. You know, like, this wasn't just some random game that, you know, he's locked in and went off. Like, he did this to get to 50-50 and he clips it. Like, usually when guys are approaching a milestone, and we've heard Dave Roberts and Shohei talk about this, like, usually it's definitely front of mind and you could start pressing a little bit. And with Shohei, I guess we saw the exact opposite. Like, he goes up and hits 49, and usually it might take a week to get to 50 after that, just because, you know, it's in your head. And it took him 30 minutes. Like, he did it in his next at bat, and then his next at bat after that, he gets to 51. So what a show that he put on, you know, pun intended there, I guess. But it's definitely up there as one of the greatest games. And I think when you add the fact that he reached the milestone, like, it helped him reach that milestone, I think it's unquestionably the greatest game.
Yeah, the point that you just made about his ability to just get this behind him, which was his post-game quote, by the way, I just wanted to get it over with. That was the thing that I kept harping on last night is, imagine all of the buildup and the pressure that there would have been if he had gotten a 49-49 and then had to wait a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And then all of a sudden you get to like 3 games left in the season. He still hasn't done it. And, you know, it's in LA and there's 60,000 people and there's all this pressure. Like, I'm convinced Ohtani may have been completely unfazed by all of that, for all we know, because he's kind of a freak in that way. But the fact that he sort of did this at a day game in Miami and was able to just check every box, because 50-50 was going to be the biggest milestone. Like, when he hits 52, it's going to be a big deal. 53. If he gets to 55, that will be a big deal. But 50 was the number. 50 was the number that everybody's going to remember him getting to. And so the fact that he was able to accomplish this without that buildup, without that pressure, I think is actually going to be a big deal, because there's also the long-term effects of that wearing on a guy if it takes 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, and then it starts to linger and it's exhausting. But we don't have to worry about any of that with Ohtani because of the way in which he accomplished it, which I think is, again, what makes this so special. I was watching it, Daniel. I don't think I've ever seen an offensive player as locked in as Ohtani was in his last 2 at-bats. And yes, I know the last at-bat was off a position player, but to come up and to get 50-50 in your very first opportunity to do it, to hit it opposite field, to your point, everything he hit last night was a laser. Everything basically could have been a home run, it felt like. And then he just kept doing it and never missed once last night. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and we haven't really touched on the stolen bases either. Like, for him to add 2 stolen bases to that game is insane.
And one of them was third base.
One of them was third base, where he definitely should have been out, but his slide was incredible. And I tweeted he's now, I think he's stolen like 28 straight bases without being thrown out, and that's when pretty much everyone knows he's going when he's on base. So for him to not even get out, I think the last time he got out stealing was in July.
Jeez, so that's 51 of 55 on the season. He's only been thrown out 4 times, which LA De La Cruz, for context, I believe has been thrown out like 12 or 16 times or something like that. Yeah. He leads the league in steals.
Yeah, it's insane. And I tweeted this as well. Like, to me, if you had to ask Shohei like what he's most happiest about yesterday, I bet he would tell you that the Dodgers clinched the playoff spot, just because he's never done that before. And I'm excited to see, you know, what he's going to do in the postseason. We saw him in the World Baseball Classic, like kind of raise his game when it was that the stakes were the highest. And by the way, that was in Miami as well when he struck out Mike Trout. So that's a pretty special ballpark for him, I would say. But yeah, I mean, incredible game. And now let's see how far he could run it up. Like 55 is definitely not out of the picture. We got 9 games left here, and he's obviously locked in at the plate, and the Rockies are coming to town, so it's not like he's going to be facing a bunch of Cy Young winners this weekend.
Yeah, and he's got a trip to Coors at the end of the season, depending on what the playoff situation is and how much he's playing. That's where I want to end, is where do you think this finishes? So he's at 51-51. That was actually my prediction a week ago. He kind of ruined my prediction by getting 3 homers and 2 steals in one game. I did not account for that in my mathematical equations over here. I did say last night, I wonder if the stolen bases are going to start to dry up, because that's the one play here that puts him at risk from an injury perspective. And so I imagine that there's going to be a little bit of, hey, this is great and awesome. And like, we're not telling you to stop running, but we're definitely telling you to maybe chill out a little bit, given circumstances and context and that kind of a thing. And so I wonder how high that number is going to get. I think 53 is kind of the number that I have in my head. But where do you see this one landing?
The thing with Shohei is you can never like put it past him to do, whatever. I'll say 55. I do think it helps that the Dodgers are still like playing for something right now. Like, it's not like they have a 20-game division lead and everything's clinched. Like, they're still they still need to wrap up the division, and B, like, they still need to make sure they're ahead of the Brewers, like, so they have that first round bye. So with that being the case, I still think it's kind of full go here. Like, I'm with you. Maybe cut back on the stolen bases a little bit, but at the same time, when you're trying to win games, like as we saw, stealing bases helps you win games. Like he doubles to lead off the game yesterday, steals third, and scores on a sac fly that he would have otherwise had not scored on if he didn't steal that base. So I still think he's going to be full go. I'll say 55, but it wouldn't even surprise me if he goes, 56. Like who really knows? Like, let's just run it up at this point.
Totally. You mentioned the playoffs real quick. The Dodgers currently tied with the Phillies for the best record in the National League at 91-62. Both of those teams have a 3-game lead over the Milwaukee Brewers, who are in the 3rd seed at the moment. And then the Dodgers divisional lead is now up to 4 games over the San Diego Padres and 6 games over the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so with 9 games to go, those are all numbers that they're where you want them to be. Higher would be better, but with 6 games against the Rockies left to play, you feel like the Dodgers should be, in decent shape. That'll do it. Let us know in the comments. Did Shohei Ohtani have the greatest offensive game in Major League history? I would argue yes. In a vacuum, maybe not. Like, Sean Green's game is pretty freaking good. 19 total bases, 6 hits, 4 homers, all that. But that was May on a team that wasn't very good. This was to clinch like historic milestones and to clinch the postseason, and to do it in the way that he did it. My answer with context is yes. In a vacuum, it's no. Let us know what you think in the comments below.
And just to add to that, Shohei also passed Sean Green for the franchise record in home runs yesterday. So just more tied into this whole thing. Incredible.
It is crazy that like it hasn't hit me that we had never seen a 50 home run season from a Dodgers player before. So crazy stuff. That is Daniel Starkand. I am Jeff Spiegel, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell below, and of course, check out DodgerBlue.com. Check out Daniel's hat, the Ohtani hat. I've got one up on the wall behind me. Good stuff. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. As always, go Dodgers.